So she's taking it. And Dr. Sunil is apologies for the pronunciation. So Sandra is working in University of Western Ontario. Her expertise is in literature searching, systematic reviews, evidence-based management, evidence-based medicine, and citation management. She has numerous publications in many of the journals. If you start reading, it's a long list, and she has publications also. So I'm sure you will be having a great time. I still remember me learning literature review for the first time from Cardiff University. It was like opening a door to a vast area which we never imagined. We thought literature review is just about reading something and writing the summarizing things, but it is much larger than that. So that was my experience in listening to literature review from Cardiff. So I'm sure this will be a very knowledgeable session for you all. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Colleen. Nice to see you again in this forum. Over to you, Sandra.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm just going to switch over to my slides and then I will go from there. Now, I think there was a way that you can have your face still showing while presenting, but since I can't figure that out, I'm just going to say hello here when you can actually see my face. So it's lovely to be meeting with you today for this session. I believe we'll have about an hour and a half, and the purpose of the session is to sort of continue where the module left off, the module on literature searching in PubMed database, to continue from there with some PubMed examples and then move to other resources and then talk about some library resources through Queen's that are available for you. So I'm hoping to have a few instances of interactivity and hands-on activities during the session. I back with a group this size to see. I hope you are when I sort of ask how things went. I'm just pausing because it said my internet connection. I see that message. I'm just going to pause. But please let me know and feel free to just unmute yourself and let me know if that happens and you missed something that I said. With that being said, if you do have questions, it might be hard for me to follow the chat. So you can put your questions in the chat if you feel like you don't want to forget them, and then I can sort of look at them maybe at the end of each section of the presentation. Otherwise, if you want to use the hands up feature to stop me right in my tracks, I'm okay with that too. And we can answer questions in real time rather than sort of, continuing on with content and then going back. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. So the title of this presentation is Literature Searching in PubMed and Beyond. And I thought it might be helpful to check in using some online polls just to sort of gauge how many of you were able, in fact, to view the module on literature searching in PubMed database. And if so, ask you what the most helpful thing you learned from the module was, and also anything that you would like clarified or covered today. So I haven't used polls while teaching before, so we are going to experience this together and see if it actually works. So the first question here is, were you able to review the module for literature searching in PubMed database? So if you can just in a browser, a new browser tab, or on your phone, go to slido.com. When you go to slido.com, it's going to ask you for the number that follows the pound sign. So if you just put in those 7 digits after going to slido.com, it will allow you to vote here and we'll see the results in real time. And this just gives me a sense of if there's anything from that module that I might still want to briefly cover today. So it looks like we have 2 people that have voted so far. I'll just check my chat while other people are going on. Four people have responded now. We have 9 people who have responded. And I'm hoping to wait for a few more responses just because the other questions, I'd really love to hear back from you as well. So just wanting to give enough time for everyone to get to slido.com, enter in the 7-digit number there. I should mention this is completely anonymous. So I can't go back and see who said what, and your peers here will not be seeing whether you had time to view this or not. I'll just give it about 30 more seconds and then we'll move on. So if you haven't and you can, please go to slido.com and vote here. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question here, which is, what was the most helpful thing you learned from the module? And this is an open-ended question, so you can type in your answer. And again, it is going to be completely anonymous. Some great answers here, thank you. Yes, it is helpful to know that when you do a PubMed search, it's automatically taking into consideration the different spelling variations between countries. Filters, yes, so definitely that free full text filter is going to be perhaps the most useful one for your group. And then, of course, limiting by publication years. Yeah, so PubMed just needs your main concepts. It doesn't need you to put in a sentence. So you can avoid using filler words such as like, for, the. And there are some instances where it does make sense to include of, for example, like if you're thinking of quality of life and you want to search that rather than quality life. There are times where just naturally you might add those really short words, but generally speaking, they're not needed. So it's interesting. It looks like the program for the polling is trying to group our responses into themes. So what words to use, using basic searching filters. A lot of great answers here. Yeah, so singular and plural version. So PubMed should be able to pick that up. And it's not always as simple as adding an S to something. So for example, if you were to say treatment and treatments, it can also be child and children. So it's more than just adding an S to words. The clipboard option for keeping track of your results. So PubMed basic search is enough for a scoping review. So it depends on if you're doing a scoping review to sort of get a sense of the literature on a topic, then yes, PubMed can be great for that, and the basic search is adequate. If you're trying to do a formal scoping review as a type of research synthesis for publication, the search criteria that's outlined in guidance documents for conducting a scoping review would want to see a more structured and comprehensive search than basic search. Citation generation. Okay, wonderful. And I think we just have one more participant typing. So I just want to how to search with keywords. Yeah. So basic search is using keywords, and it's looking for the keywords that you enter in different fields of the citation record in PubMed. So the title field, the author provided keywords, the abstract, all that good stuff. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. And now we'll move on to the final question. Is there anything that you would like clarified or covered today? So this is our word cloud, which is supposed to be sort of gathering terms that are coming up repeatedly and making them bigger the more popular they are. So I see advanced search is coming up quite a bit, appropriate use of Boolean operators. Use of mesh. So mesh are medical subject headings for searching the Medline component of PubMed. Other databases use subject headings by different names, not mesh, but their own sort of thesaurus terms for describing records. So I think what I'm seeing here is that the poll doesn't sort of present things as phrases. It's just sort of breaking up some of the words here. So some of it is a little harder to make sense of. I wonder if putting, and thanks for learning here with me, if putting quotations around the responses, we'll keep them as a phrase. How to use quotes. I'm assuming maybe that's what quoting means, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I would love to know what some of these words mean that are efficient, different, correct. So feel free in the chat to sort of, okay, so some people using filter and how to do basic search using relevant words. Yeah, if you feel like the word cloud sort of dismantled your response, feel free to put it in the chat there, but that's good to see how this slide out feature works. So thank you for participating in these 3 polls, and then we'll continue on. All right, so our agenda for today, to do a quick recap of the module's key points on PubMed Basic Search. Going a little bit deeper into PubMed Basic Search, we'll talk about how to understand what synonyms and related terms PubMed is including when it translates your search. And in knowing what synonyms and related terms are or are not included in your search, that gives you sort of the information you need to decide if you want to combine certain search terms with or, if PubMed is sort of missing them as synonyms. Now, I can absolutely quickly cover advanced search here. I can add a quick few minutes on that, and there will be, I think, time to do a couple of practice scenarios. Using mesh to search PubMed is a very sort of like complicated way of searching, necessary for doing synthesis like scoping reviews, if that's something that some of you are going to be doing. So there is hopefully in the future going to be a session that is really getting at the sort of nitty-gritty of searching, sort of systematic searching that would be necessary for scoping reviews and that sort of thing. And it would cover how to create searches that utilize both keyword searching and utilize using subject headings. So we won't be covering mesh today, but it's certainly something that could be coming in the near future as a library session. And then after talking about PubMed, we're going to talk about other resources for conducting literature searches, which will include PubMed Central and Google Scholar. And then we will quickly review a library guide that has been created for Pallium India Fellows. And then we will talk about how to request a follow-up individual consultation with a Queen's librarian if you're interested, and they can go over a literature search that you're working on with you. So that's our agenda today. And as I mentioned, feel free to raise your hand if you have questions throughout. Otherwise, I'll try to remember to check in on the chat as we sort of go through the different sections here. So to recap, PubMed Basic Search that was covered in the module. Basic searching in PubMed is an efficient approach for searching clinical questions or for conducting narrative reviews. And when I say narrative reviews, I'm thinking of traditional narrative reviews. I'm not thinking about systematic reviews that may have a narrative summary. Those types of searches, systematic searches and synthesis searches do need to be a little bit more sophisticated than basic search. We talked about identifying and searching for the main concepts of your question and topic, and leaving out words that might overly restrict the search results that are retrieved. For example, your question might talk about wanting to understand the optimum treatment of an intervention, but when you go to search, leaving out words like optimum, because the author might not have mentioned, you know, optimum in the title and abstract, it's best to just sort of go with the main concept there, which is just treatment. All search concept or all search terms are automatically going to be combined with and when you do a PubMed search, so you don't need to put and in between all your different terms. And then terms like in, the, for, etc. are generally not needed. Now, in some cases, if you're searching quality of life, it can be really awkward to not put in a short word there. And in those cases, I think it is better to sort of keep those just as they are, and possibly search them as a phrase as well, which we can discuss. And then we talked about the use of PubMed filters. So the main one that we covered was the option to limit your results to free full text. And of course, there was options to limit your results by date as well. So where I would like to pick up is understanding the synonyms and related terms that PubMed is including when it translates a basic search. So recall that the basic search algorithm translates the search terms entered to include synonyms and other closely related terms. But to what extent, and how do you know if searching for treatment includes synonyms like therapy? So let's take a closer look in PubMed using the example from the module, treatment of oral candidiasis. I'm not sure exactly how to say that, in palliative care. So if you want to open PubMed, and feel free to follow along, you can open PubMed now, sorry. Actually, I'm just thinking for this, because we are going to go in and have you do some exercises, but in this case, it might actually just make sense if I show you. So looking at the example, treatment of oral candidiasis, candidate in palliative care. Okay, so I'm just going to switch over to PubMed and put that search in. So we have 39 results, putting this search in treatment, oral candidiasis, palliative care. And you can see the filters over to the left. So this is where we could move this slider over to the last 5 or 10 years if this is a clinical practice kind of question and you want more recent literature. And it might help to actually just start with looking at what free full text is available, because depending on how much that limits your search, you may choose not to include a date limit. So now these free full text articles go back to 2006. So knowing how PubMed has translated your search, there are hints when you just look at your search results here. So PubMed is highlighting the terms that we put into the search box, but you'll notice that some of the terms that are being highlighted are not the exact terms that we put in. So here I can see that actually PubMed is including therapy as a synonym or related concept for treatment. So that's helpful to know, but if it's hard to determine looking at the results exactly what's going on, you can go into advanced search and look at the search details for more information. So I'm going to click on this advanced search option here, which is going to show me, if I scroll down, my history and search details. So under details here, if I sort of click this expand button, I can see the translation. I like the lower version because it breaks up the different concepts as it sees our main concepts. And it makes it easier for me to sort of look at each concept separately. So when I search treatment, it's telling me that it looked for therapeutics as a subject heading term, or therapeutics in all fields, as well as treatments in all fields. Therapy is a subheading to mesh terms, treatment in all fields, and even some sort of weird pluralization of treatments with the apostrophe there. So this is great. It lets me know that the search is being done more comprehensively than the terms that I've just entered. But if I am not getting, a lot of great results and I'm thinking, well, how can I expand this search? I might want to see if I can add terms like management, because this search with treatment is not picking up articles that might say managing this condition in palliative care. So this is where, after reviewing the search details, you might decide that you want to OR in a particular synonym for one of the main concepts that you have. So I am going to ask you to open PubMed and to do a search looking for articles that discuss management or treatment of this condition in palliative care. See what I've done there? I'm just saying this condition now. So I'll just give you a second for that. And then I'm going to ask you what you found. So can anyone tell me what their search results look like, either in terms of how many results they retrieved or what approach they used? This is where we'll sort of see how well the interactivity goes when we're not in person. Okay, so somebody here got 4 results. So would you mind, Rule, if I'm saying that correctly, would you mind putting in your search? Rule, did I say that right or no? You're like, close enough. Thank you. Do you mind? Okay, so you did management or treatment. Okay, so got 39 results. So Sravani, if I'm saying that right, you put in management or treatment of oral candidiasis. What did your results look like? How many results did you retrieve?
Ma'am, can you please repeat again what we need to put the keywords in the search engine? Management only. What we are supposed to put in the keywords, management only or management or treatment?
We're looking for articles discussing management or treatment. So just trying to get a sense of how you would go about doing that search in PubMed. Okay, thank you, Sravani. You got about 300,000 results. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll look at this together. Okay, so if now keep in mind, right now I have the filter on for free full text. So if you've done some filters over here too, your numbers are going to look a little bit different. So I'm just going to clear all. And then I have the 39 results that somebody else had as well. But now if I want to add in this concept of, well, I want articles that say management just as much as I want articles that say treatment for this condition. So if I type in management, and then whenever we combine terms, we use or, we capitalize it so that the PubMed, the database, knows that it's sort of a Boolean operator, and that's just a fancy word for it has a purpose other than searching for the short word or. So if I search management or treatment for this condition in palliative care, I now have over 3 million results. So something here is definitely not right. And what is happening with this search is PubMed actually reads the search as everything on the left-hand side of the or, and then everything that's on the right side. So this search is actually looking for anything that says management on its own, or treatment, oral, candidiasis, palliative care. So it's taking the 39 results that we got for this search initially, and it's ORing it with anything that says management about anything. So does anyone have any ideas about how we could get PubMed to know that we're only trying to combine management and treatment with or? We want it to sort of read it as management or treatment with this condition in palliative care. Any ideas on how to revise this search? I'll open the chat in case. Is everyone okay seeing my screen?
We can.
Okay. Brackets. Yes. So where would I put the brackets? Does anyone want to suggest where the brackets would go? Yeah, we don't want to put or in small letters. We want to keep or capitalized so that it knows that we want to or two terms. Okay, so brackets is absolutely the key here. So if I put brackets around management or treatment, it forces PubMed to read this as a unit. So management or treatment and this condition and this setting. So if I search now, I have 2 more results than the 49 that I was retrieving with just treatment. But when you're limiting to free full text, you know, this took us from 7 articles to 8, and this, you know, extra article might be the key here if you're not retrieving a lot of results. So any way that you can sort of broaden your search, especially if you're not retrieving a lot of articles that are freely available, can be really helpful. And I mean, you can do this as many times as you want. So if you want to see anything that talks about interventions for now intervention didn't add anything, but you can see how you can keep going here. Or if you had specific types of treatment that you're thinking of, you can OR those in here as well. And that might broaden the search. So that is how you're going to OR concepts together, is just making sure that you're using OR capitalized and putting brackets around the terms that you want to OR. Any questions about that? I'm just going to look back to the chat.
I think Colleen wants to say something.
Yeah, Sandra, would you, so I think it's pronounced candidiasis. Maybe
Okay,
someone
yeah.
more medical than me can confirm, but I think that's an oral fungal infection. So would you search by candidiasis plus fungal infection or thrush or other words for it, or would the search engine already be doing that?
Yeah, so we could again go back to our advanced search and see how PubMed is interpreting that part of the search. So we can look at the details for any of these searches here. I'll go back to the one that's already open. So it shows that for this condition here, it's searching the mesh term, and then it's just searching these different, like very exactly what we put in terms. So if we want to know, I guess, like the scope of what this mesh term is, so any articles that are tagged with mesh terms, you know, that would be sort of like a separate database to go in and do that. So if we feel like we might be missing a synonym here, again, we can absolutely OR it in the search. So if I go back to our last search here, and so you're saying that, would it just be, is it thrush, or is it, how do you pronounce that or spell it? Sorry.
Yeah, it's thrush, and it's maybe fungal.
And do I have to say, is thrush, it's not, like I should say oral? as well again? It's not implied?
I think it's implied.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we could try doing that, and now we have 13 results. So we'll see what that looks like. You can tell by looking at the citations of some of these results that they're not overly relevant. But yeah, it does, anytime that there might be synonyms for one of your terms, especially like, yeah, again, if there's a condition that you're searching and there's different ways to describe that condition, absolutely feel free to or different synonyms and just using the same concepts that we just talked about. So oring with capital and putting brackets. So you can get really, these search strings can get really long as you start oring more and more of your concepts, terms for your concepts together. Not many relevant. Yes, exactly. And this will be the reality of some of the searches that you're going to do. So I'm going to show you 2 more resources after this that might help with that. But yeah, a lot of times, our search terms come up in a citation record, but not in the right context. So it's not at all uncommon to screen through the results that are retrieved, and maybe only 10% of them are actually going to be highly relevant. And of course, there's ways to make this search more specific. But in doing that, we run the risk of getting, for example, here, no results. So really it makes sense to go broader, screen the results, and hopefully we'll find something relevant than taking a narrow approach. And what a narrow approach would look like is some of you mentioned wanting to see advanced search. So if we went into advanced search gives you the option to build your search with your different concepts and to sort of specify what fields you want to search in. So if you wanted to do a more narrow search, a more specific search so that these articles looked more relevant, I'm just going to clear this free full text option. So instead of searching all fields, which is what we were doing before in basic search, it was taking a very broad approach. You can scroll down and you can choose to just search in the title or the title and abstract, or as a text word, and a text word finds your terms in the title, abstract, or author provided keywords. So I'll just show you an example of what this might look like. Yeah, if thrush isn't sort of like the medical term for this condition, it might be why it's not, it didn't seem to come up in the results a lot, but it did bring us back 5 extra. So anyway, sorry. So yes, we would add a text word search, searching in the title, abstract, and author provided keywords for this concept. And then we could do palliative. And you know what, like palliative's an example. I mentioned that when you do that search, you can sort of leave out patients, because palliative care patients, if you mention palliative care, it's sort of implied that you're working with patients. Even when you search palliative, it might be talking about in a palliative setting without saying palliative care. So if I wanted to go even broader here, I could just really include the main concept palliative. And if I want to make this really relevant, I could say, well, maybe I want to see that in the title. So now I'm going to add that. And then maybe more broadly, again, so text word anywhere in the title, abstract, or author provided keywords, anything to do with treatment or management. So now instead of searching all fields, I've done specific fields that I've selected. So this will make the results more relevant, but keep in mind, I only had 39 results with the broad approach. So now when I try this more specific approach, I'm only getting 5 results. And yes, these articles may look more relevant, but if I go and limit to free full text, I now have only 1 article to screen here. So this is why I think, given that we're limited to looking for what has a free full text option, I think the broader search approach will benefit your group more. The advanced search is great. Let's say you do have a topic that's massive and it's retrieving, hundreds, if not thousands of results, and you want to get more specific, then maybe come into advanced search and choose the field specifically that you want to search in to make the results more relevant. Otherwise, for searches like the one we're working on, it's easier to just do the broad search, which retrieved 39 results or 41 when you ordered management and treatment, and then limit to free full text. And then you're only screening 8 results, but you've taken a very broad approach. Or 13 when you OR with Thresh. Just gonna check our, okay, spelled wrong. Okay, so we went from 5 to 10 results when we actually spelled the condition correctly. So again, we're at about a quarter of the results that we had when we did the broader basic search. And then when we limit to free full text, we only have 2 results instead of the 13. Thanks for pointing that out, Colleen. Okay, so keeping an eye on the chat here. If there are questions, I'm going to continue from the current slide. Okay, so that is where I had sort of planned to leave off with PubMed, but I'm happy to answer any other questions before we continue. I know that was a very quick look at advanced search. I think it's somewhat self-explanatory. The main difference is that you're separating your concepts by, doing one at a time so that you can select what fields you want to search those concepts in. Okay, so if there aren't any burning questions at this point, I'm going to continue on to talk about. So PubMed Central is often referred to as its acronym PMC. And this database is actually all free full text. So it's a free full text archive of biomedical and life sciences journal literature. And it contains over 8 million records. So if you think about PubMed that we were just in, PubMed contains over 35 million records. So PubMed Central, this archive of free full text, has 8 million in contrast. All the PubMed Central records are in PubMed, but the main difference is that if you, instead of searching PubMed, if you search PubMed Central, it will search for your terms in the full text article, as well as the fields that PubMed searches. So title, abstract, author provided keywords. So this ability to search for your terms within articles, not just within their bibliographic data, may be helpful in finding additional relevant literature. So feel free to open PMC. You can Google it, PubMed Central, or you can go to the link, which is not very quick and easy to say. So maybe just Googling PubMed Central and we'll meet there. So PubMed Central doesn't look that different than PubMed. The default search box here again is the basic searching, which is what we were doing in PubMed, and all the same principles to searching are going to apply here. So let's just look at an example that we're familiar with in PubMed in terms of how many results we were retrieving. Hopefully I spelled that right. Is it the I before the A? And palliative. And I might just say palliative because like I mentioned, you know, the authors might say palliative care, but they might say palliative setting, palliative patient. So let's just go broad here. Okay, so if I search in PubMed Central, this is a huge difference to what happened when we were searching in PubMed. And in fact, it says right on the display here, you searched 8+ million full text articles in PubMed Central. Try this search in PubMed. So we try the same search in PubMed and we have 44 results. So the fact that we have over 600 results now is because PubMed Central is able to look for our terms right within the full text articles. So what this means is that these results, a lot of them may be a lot less relevant. For example, it could be picking up the term palliative in one of the cited references of an article that relevant. But this can be particularly helpful if you really are not able to find anything in PubMed about your topic. And if you want, you can try to balance the sort of broadness of this search by, again, going into advanced, which is very similar to using PubMed Advanced, and maybe saying that there are certain terms that you would be willing to search for in all fields, including the full text, but others maybe you want to be more specific and say that you want to search in the title field or something like that, sort of break up the different search concepts. I got 8 million results. So there's 8 million citations in full text articles in PMC. That's the total number. Let me just go back. I'm just looking at the chat here. So it's saying we searched 8 million full text articles, but we shouldn't be retrieving 8 million results. Feel free to clarify though, if you did do a search and think you still got 8 million results. Does that mean more articles are linked with PMC than PubMed? More articles are linked with. So all the PMC articles have citation records in PubMed, but PubMed, because PubMed does not contain full text articles like PMC does, PubMed cannot search the full text articles. So even though these same citations have records in PubMed, they can't be searched in the full text because there is no PDF or full text article associated with them. So yes, all of these articles are also have records within PubMed. Let me know if that helps to answer your question. I think We click on the PMID, it takes us here. But again, PubMed only is able to link, like provide a link to the full text. It's not able to search the full text because the database itself doesn't contain the full text. Whereas in PubMed Central, it contains the full text, and that's why it's able to do this sort of deeper search. So yeah,
So in that case, so if you are in dearth of articles, so it's better to search in the PMC than the PubMed, right? For rare conditions and rare articles.
yeah, like you mean if you're not able to find enough articles in PubMed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you can start with PubMed Central if you would prefer. I would just recommend that if you're going to start with PubMed Central instead of PubMed, maybe you know, utilizing the advanced search here where you can try to have some of your main concepts appear in fields that are more relevant and sort of playing around with that. Because again, it's wonderful that we retrieved over 600 results here for the same search. But when I looked more closely at them, sometimes like palliative care was only coming up because it was mentioned in one of the references of the article. So obviously the article itself was not specific to palliative care. So you may find though that with using advanced search and trying to make the search more specific by including things like the palliative concept in the title abstract fields, that you start getting results that actually look more like PubMed. So it's a balancing act. Yes, somebody mentioned many articles in PMC are less related. Absolutely. And so that's where in some cases, what is dug up in the full text might be relevant, but it may not at all. So you can, again, start with, you know, using a filter to maybe limit to the last 5 or 10 years if this is for clinical practice. And considering rather than screening 482 articles, thinking about, okay, well, what is, you know, sort of the most important concept? And maybe I want to try to make the search a bit more specific to, like maybe ultimately if there's not a lot about treating this condition in a palliative care setting, maybe I just want articles that really just talk about this condition and treating it, whether it's palliative or not. So you could go to the advanced search and you could say, you know what, I'm going to search in the title, abstract, and author provided keywords for the condition, because ultimately the condition is more important than anything else here. Yeah, I think that's right. Or gosh. And then I'll just take a more broader approach to the other two concepts. So that brings the results down to 40. Yeah, we're seeing some of these are abstracts from conferences, which are less relevant, almost everything. So in a way, when PubMed is not retrieving a lot of results on a topic, it might be likely that there just isn't a lot out there, whether you're able to search in the full text of articles or not. I mean, ultimately, the main concepts of a topic should be hopefully reflected in the title, abstract, and author provided keywords. So this is really like a stretch to try to find something else that might be relevant. And these results, these conference presentations and whatnot don't look very promising. Any other questions about PMC? I'd be curious to know, maybe by a show of hands. So with Zoom, under reactions, can you raise your hand if you think you might use PubMed Central, or if you think that ultimately searching the full text isn't that helpful if it's less relevant? So can I just see a show of hands if you think you might use PubMed Central? So many of you will probably stick with using PubMed. Okay, I think that's fair. If you want, oh, a couple more, yeah. Okay, that's good to know, that's helpful. Okay, any questions about PubMed Central before we move on to Google Scholar? So someone mentioned PubMed Central is especially helpful maybe for doing systematic reviews because it includes conference papers. I think what PubMed Central is actually showing us there is like the conference abstracts. PubMed and PubMed Central don't do a great job at including conference materials, but other subscription-based resources like Web of Science, Embase, which is sometimes like called the European equivalent of PubMed, those actually do contain a lot of conference materials. But again, you need a subscription through a library to be able to access those resources. So I think, Pearl, did you want to comment there?
Yes, ma'am. I want to ask actually, while doing the PubMed, in the PubMed search, while we are using the filter where we filter using the full text filter we are already using in the PubMed. Whereas in PubMed Central, we all have only the full text free articles, and how that is going to make any difference between the PubMed and PubMed Central.
Yeah, so the difference is because PubMed can't search the full text articles, you get less results. You probably get more relevant results. So you can limit your PubMed search to where PubMed provides a link to the free full text, but PubMed is not providing the free full text. PubMed Central provides the free full text, which means it's able to search the full text when you do a search. So you can do a very deep search by not just searching bibliographic detail, title, abstract, but also the full text. But, you know, as some of your peers, I think, have noticed, the relevancy of the search then goes down when you're searching in the full text and not actually in those more relevant fields of title and abstract. Does that help to answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to discussing using, oh, I just wanted to mention, so going back to the systematic review piece or synthesis in general, whether it's a scoping review or a meta-analysis, narrative systematic review, the goal is to try to identify all studies that answer a synthesis question. And so if you find yourself in a position where you don't have access to resources like Embase and Web of Science for doing a really comprehensive search, that is where it would be wonderful if there is the opportunity to collaborate. And I'm not sure what your comfort level is with reaching out to other collaborators at other institutions, but I think that if you have expertise in an area and want to do a synthesis and were to contact, for example, somebody at Queen's that you have found on Google who works in that area, or ResearchGate or LinkedIn, I think if you're able to collaborate with someone from an institution who can help search more databases, that would be ideal. And not only would it potentially give access to other databases that you can search, it would also give you potentially access to systematic review software. So at Queen's, for example, we have Covidence, which is a systematic review tool for deduplicating search results that you retrieve from different databases, helping you screen all these things. So I really hope that in the future that might be a possibility to work with, whether it's other Queen's researchers or other researchers internationally, where if you find that you don't have access to certain resources, but you have subject expertise and want to do a comprehensive systematic review or other type of synthesis, that you're able to be part of a larger team with more resources. So someone asked, is PubMed similar to Cochrane reviews? So speaking of synthesis and systematic reviews, Cochrane is the gold standard for doing systematic reviews. And Cochrane Library makes their systematic reviews available from that resource. But actually, every Cochrane review is also available in PubMed. So when you do a search, it is bringing up systematic reviews that are in Cochrane Library as well. So that's really nice. With Cochrane Library, if you have, you can tell I'm by the train tracks. I'm not sure if you can hear the trains going by sometimes. But if you search Cochrane Library, if you had access to that, then you could get the full text article. So in PubMed, you may or may not be able to actually link to a full text article when you find a Cochrane review. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again and talk a little bit about Google Scholar now. Okay, so Google Scholar, a simple way to broadly search for scholarly literature across the world and from many disciplines and sources. So unlike PubMed, which is a database sort of in biomedicine, so it includes articles that might include disciplines like medicine and nursing and allied health. Google Scholar searches it all. So it includes journals or articles from journals from education and the humanities. And in some ways, if you have a multidisciplinary topic, this can be a great resource to search, because you're not just limiting yourself to medical journals, you're searching education journals and technology journals and things like that as well. So like PubMed, Google Scholar is free to search, but the citation records retrieved don't necessarily link to free full text articles. But if they do, if there's a free full text article, there will be a link provided, and I'll show you what that looks like. Again, all terms are automatically combined with and when you do a search. And for the most part, terms like in, the, for, anything that creates a sentence are generally not needed. Google Scholar is going to attempt to include synonyms and related terms for the search terms that you enter, just like in PubMed. And finally, search results are also going to be displayed by relevancy. Oh, sorry, that's not the final thing. The final thing is filters are also available to limit the search results by date, but not by free full text, unfortunately. So I'm going to open up Google Scholar and just do a search before I ask you to give it a try as well. So if I use the same topic here, as we were using in PubMed, just to sort of, again, compare the results for a search that we're familiar with, I'll enter in my terms, no and just say continue. So the results come up as, 20,000 or so, which is obviously way more articles than there are on this topic. Excuse me while I cough, just 1 second. Sorry about that. So there's two reasons the number of results is so large in Google Scholar. One is that the search algorithm in Google Scholar is starting with trying to find all of your key concepts in the search, but by, after a few dozens or 100 results. They're really picking up anything that mentions any, of these concepts. So the results as you go through are just getting less and less relevant. They can also search if the full text is available and provided, they can also be searching that. So you have this large number of results, but again, the most relevant results are going to be the ones at the top of the page and maybe only go a page or two. Now, because Google Scholar is recognizing that I'm coming in through Queen's, which has access to a lot of journals, I'm seeing links to get the full paper over to the right here. But if I do this same search in an incognito browser, this is probably more likely to reflect what you would see if you did the same search. And that is that you're not going to be seeing a link to a full text paper for a lot of these results. Now, if you do, you can obviously click on the PDF link or the HTML link to get the full paper. But otherwise, just like in PubMed, there are going to be certain articles that you just cannot access. Unfortunately, Google Scholar does not provide a limit to free full text option. So you sort of have to scroll through to see what is available and what isn't available just by looking at the right-hand side of the page and seeing where links to full text articles are provided. Just like PubMed, you can see, oh, sorry, go ahead, Colleen.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, when I did my PhD, I love Google Scholar. It's my friend, but I often had to go through Queen's Google Scholar because the free full articles weren't available. But I guess I've never known when you go incognito or you don't have access to the special library resources, is it the same search? You just don't have access to the PDFs? So, or is it a more limited search? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the results here seem to be about the same. So it's probably only able to search the full text articles that are available freely. So the results are the same. But then depending on if you're, coming from an IP address that has access to a library or not, the difference will be in where you can see the links provided to full text. So in Google Scholar, ORing works differently. So actually, when we want to combine search terms with OR, what Google does is it looks at the one word to the left and the one word to the right. So in this case, brackets aren't even needed because it properly understands that we want articles discussing management or treatment and this condition and palliative care. And I'll just mention here as well that you can look at what terms are bolded, just like in the PubMed search results, to see what sort of synonyms and related terms that the search is grabbing. So you can see the sort of related term that's being grabbed here, even oral yeast, whether that's a good thing or not. They usually do a pretty good job at finding the synonyms that are relevant. They just might not find all synonyms. So even in Google Scholar, they're including treat as a synonym for treatment, which PubMed didn't do. So that's a little bit more of a broader approach. And it looks like they actually do find thrush here as well. So all these terms are bolded. Therapy. So you can see that Google Scholar has taken a much broader approach to translating your search than PubMed did. Okay, but let's just see what it looks like when I combine management or treatment here. So the results only go up marginally, like they only went up marginally in PubMed when we OR'd in management. So let me just talk a little bit about advanced search. So if you find that you're getting too many results in Google Scholar or they're not relevant enough, you may be interested in doing an advanced search. So if you go to the left-hand corner, beside where it says Google Scholar, there's the option to do an advanced search. And actually, if you go to advanced search after you've conducted a search, it will show you how it has sort of translated your search. So in this search that I've done, it's looking for this condition and palliative care. So all of these words, and then this is how it translates the or part of our search. So management or treatment, at least one of these words. And they're searching for these terms anywhere in the article. So if you wanted, you could actually try to see what happens when you search in the title of the article only, for example. Now, we only get one result when we do that. But, you know, it might help to sort of bring this article up further in our list so that we're able to identify it sooner than going through the pages of search results from the previous search. Now, if you wanted to find a middle ground between searching all your terms in the title and maybe just searching some of them in the title, you can actually just take note of what you need to sort of put in front of the terms in order to tell it to do a title search. So instead of this all in title, if I go back to our previous search, I can choose which words I want to be in the title in the basic search box here. And I can put in title, and then a colon. And if I want the full term to be in the title here, the full sort of phrase, I can put quotations around it to do a phrase search. Otherwise, if I put in title in front of just oral, it's only going to find oral in the title, but not necessarily anything else. So I can manipulate this search to say that I want this phrase in the title, but these other words, they can appear anywhere. And so even now, I'm down to 42 results compared to what I had before. So this in title colon is a nice way to sort of play around with your search to make it more specific. If you're struggling to find articles on a topic, but you do find one that looks really good, if it's not too new, like this article is from 2023, and so nobody has cited it yet. Whereas if you go down and look at something that's a little bit older, 2007, it's been cited 64 times. So sometimes it can be helpful if you find a really great article, but maybe you can't find a lot more, or you don't have access to that article. You can search it in Google Scholar and then see who has cited it. And once you go to cited 64, it's going to show the articles that have cited it. And if you want, you can search within these citing articles so that it's more relevant. So if you just want to say, well, I just want to make sure my condition is present. So now we went from 64 to 56 by saying that these articles have to mention our condition here. Before we do
searching within citations.
Sorry, I'm not sure that I heard that. Even if you want to put it in the chat.
Okay.
Dr. Punita, I think there was some echo.
Okay. Are you like searching within the citations now?
Do I?
Am I able?
Yes, you are,
Yes, I
ma'am.
think, are you asking Sandra that is she searching within the citations? I think.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, so I'll just show that again in case I was going kind of fast. So let's go back to one of the previous Google Scholar searches here. So whenever you do a search and see the results, it will show you if an article has been cited. And so you can come in and you can click cited by 124 to see a list of the articles that cite this one. But if it's too many to go through, like 124, maybe you just want to search within the citing articles. So it gives you this checkbox here, search within citing articles, and then you can put additional criteria. So yes, these articles all cite a paper you're interested in, but do they also mention the condition that you're interested in? So that's just a way to bring down the results when you're looking at articles that have cited a paper of interest. And you can also, if you know the title of a paper of interest, you can just put it in. And when it comes up, then you can, click on cited by and search within the citing articles. Or if it's only 16 results, maybe you just quickly scan them. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to have you quickly open Google Scholar if you haven't already, and go in, if you will, if you want to join along in this hands-on activity for a couple minutes, and just try searching for articles about how to discuss palliative care or end-of-life care with patients. So if you can this can look however you want it to look, take whatever approach you want, and just go in and try to build a search in Google Scholar to get articles about how to discuss palliative care or end-of-life care with patients. And I'll check in about 1 minute. Carol, would you be willing to put your copying and pasting your search into the chat, just so we can see what your approach was?
Sandra, your voice dropped a little bit after, or is it just for me?
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, better. I mean, I think earlier it was very clear. Now it is a little on the lower side.
Oh, sorry about that. I was just okay. So, Pearl
Yes,
wrote that
it's
she
clear now.
retrieved 3 million results, and she used discuss palliative or end of life care patients. Okay. So, I'm just going to copy that search and get it together. I hope you don't mind. We're using your example. It's great to have something to work with here. So let me just share my screen with Google Scholar here. Okay, so this search is looking for anything that says discuss, and then anything that says palliative or end, and then also life, care, and patients. So this is a big topic. Is to search for this concept of end of life, because these are like of is in there, but it's actually like end of life we want as a phrase. We want these words to appear next to each other. So we can try seeing if there's any difference when we group those search words as a phrase. So this makes our results a little bit more, I don't want to say manageable, but you can see that it made a big difference here, because now it's not just looking for end in life anywhere, it's looking for end of life specifically side by side. Now, I like this approach of putting it in brackets, and if you were to use hyphens here, it would actually further limit the results potentially. I mean, it's doing almost the same thing when you include, sorry, let me remove the brackets. So when you do the hyphens, it's essentially kind of doing the phrase search because it's forcing all of these terms to be together. So we retrieved almost the same results as if we were to put these as a phrase search. So in some cases, you know, it makes sense to maybe hyphenate things, or you can put them as a phrase search. Something else that you might want to search as a phrase rather than, you know, have the terms separately anded is quality of life. So putting quotations around quality of life will ensure that you get articles that say that phrase, not just talk about quality somewhere and life somewhere. Now, again, the results here are sorted by relevancy, and you're not going to be going through, you know, all 280,000 results. You can even right off the bat limit the results here to a custom range. So maybe you want to limit to the last 10 years, for example. And then just keep in mind that there are lots of ways to search for the concept of discussing something with patients. So communication is another way to describe that concept, but see how it's not bolding communication. So it's not, Google Scholar is not recognizing that communication is maybe a related term for discussing. So we could say communication or conversation. Now, if it helps, you can put these in brackets, these or terms, but otherwise Google Scholar is just searching the one word to the left and the one word to the right here. So doing sort of the same thing. So that brings up the number of results a little bit, because now you can, now you're retrieving results where discuss might not be used, but communication or conversation are. And if we want to make this search, you know, look even more relevant, we could try that trick of in the title putting discuss or communication. And we can do this for, you know, all of our concepts if we like. Any questions about using Google Scholar before we sort of wrap up? Okay, so I'm going to go back to.
Sorry, Sandra, just a quick
Yeah.
question about since there were so many articles there, what if you just wanted to focus on systematic reviews or something like that? Because there seems to be so much on that topic, and maybe like in the last 5 years.
Yeah, great point. So if you want, you can. I don't know why it's taking me so long to get out of my presentation when I try to go back to the internet, but just give me a second. Okay. So anytime you want to have a specific document type retrieved, I find the best way to do this is to use the in title search. And so, for example, if you wanted to limit to reviews, in title and then review. And if you wanted to limit specifically to systematic reviews, you would just need to remember to search systematic as a phrase, systematic reviews, sorry, because otherwise it would just find systematic in the title, but you want systematic reviews. So that title search can be really helpful. And of course, this can also be done to search for original research as well as secondary research. So if you want to, find trials on something, you can use trial in the title instead. So that title search can be really helpful for retrieving certain study designs or document types. Great question. Okay, so just a few minutes left. I would like to share these slides with you afterwards. And one other thing I would like to share with you and provide a link in a follow-up email perhaps is this library guide that's been created for palliative care for your fellowship program specifically. So I put this together as sort of like place where you can go to look for information that might be open access, but also to talk about a few different things that go beyond searching for open access or free articles. So to get to this guide, you can Google Pallium India Queen's Library Guide, but in a follow-up email, I'll also be sharing the URL here. And why don't I just open that up quickly here. How to formulate clinical questions. And this could be used even to understand formulating other types of questions, like a question that sort of helps you do a narrative review. But there is information here about different frameworks that might help you with developing a structured question. So you can check out the information available on that. For literature, the free resources that we covered today. In addition, there's also this SciELO, the Science Electronic Library Online database that is available with full text articles that are freely accessible. So you can try that resource as well. It doesn't necessarily have a whole, lot more to offer than maybe PubMed or Google Scholar, but it's another free resource with free full text articles. So maybe see for your topic if you can find anything in there. And then I've listed a number of journals in palliative care that are open access that you can go ahead and review. And sorry, my Zoom bar is always in the way of me accepting things and closing things. Okay, so if we go to this homepage, all of the articles for BMC palliative care are open access, and some of the other journals that are listed in this on this page are partially open access. So in some cases, the articles could be free if an author has paid an article processing charge. So everything in the first list is available for you to read in full, and then these other journals are partial. There aren't many open access books on palliative care, so I've linked the only ones that I could find here in case it's helpful. They're from 2019. Some consumer health information is provided. And if you're going to be doing writing, if you imagine that you will be doing a review article or a systematic review, you might be interested in using a citation manager, and a number of the main citation managers offer a free version. So Zotero has a free version, Mendeley, and information about how to download these citation managers, how to use them is provided on these pages. And if you're still not sure why you might want to use a citation manager, you can look at this introductory page. It's for more than just citing. It even helps you to store sources like your PDFs in one place and annotate them with highlighting and notes. And then finally, I'll mention, if you go back to the literature searching page, if you would like, you are more than welcome to request an optional follow-up with a librarian to discuss a literature search that you're working on. So basically, sorry, I'm trying to move this Zoom bar out of my way again. basically, if you click on my email address here, the email is going to automatically populate with the subject line here for a consultation for Pallium India Fellowship Program. And then if you can just replace this text with a brief description of your search topic, the purpose of the literature search, and your preferred dates and times for meeting, including your time zone, then we can arrange that for you. Now, as I mentioned, there might be something coming in the future that looks at systematic searching in more detail, because it's something that would be very hard to cover in a 30-minute consultation if you do decide you want to meet with a librarian. So just keep that in mind, that certainly the librarian can chat with you if you're doing a systematic review search, but 30 minutes likely won't be sufficient time to walk through the whole process with you. So this is really more geared at if you have literature searches for writing a review article or a clinical search that you're having trouble with, the librarian can help with that. Colleen, do you want to say anything else, whether it's related to a follow-up session with more systematic searching, or is there anything else that I should cover before we end today?
Actually, yeah, that's great. If there are particular topics you'd like to have another session on, Sandra and the librarians at Queen's have expressed interest in being able to provide some more. So we, kind of took a first pass at what we thought might be relevant to you, but please provide your feedback. Someone has put in the chat, can we access your electronic library? We have had that request from other people before, apparently, and obviously sharing information would be the most beneficial thing for everyone. The difficulty has come up with the contracts that Queen's has with their library vendors. So we have talked to the head librarians at Queen's, and I'm working with Queen's legal department and in our memo of understanding to maybe pilot. We're going to start with, doing free consultations with the librarians, see what kind of questions come up. And when people collaborate with Queen's, they can get more access to things like Google Scholar, and the real Google Scholar, not the free one. And I know when I got cut off from my PhD and I didn't have access to all those wonderful articles, it was very frustrating. So we are going down that path. And I think you're going to be the first group to try to break through some of those barriers. But yeah, we'll keep you posted. But starting out with consultations, I know that part of the program here is going to be doing some kind of QI project or research component. And if you want to, go over your research topic with the librarians and they can help you find stuff, it'll also help them understand better where access limitations are and what we as a university might be able to do. We might look to some external funding to be able to support more collaborations, that type of thing, or more access. So it must be frustrating when there are already, big trials done on things that you need to know for your patients and you can't get to them. So I think everybody understands that. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback and support from our library at Queen's.
I would just be interested to know, because in databases like PubMed, or even when you search Google Scholar, you can often review the abstract. Does anyone use the abstract information, the methods, the results, the conclusions, to sort of guide their decision making, or is that uncomfortable given that you don't have the ability to see the full text and really understand if the methods were done properly? Does anyone have any comments on using the abstracts alone?
Oh,
There is one in the chat.
Abstracts will give some basic idea, but if we want to understand more about the methodology, especially in some qualitative research and other kind of specialized research fields, then we need to more look into that full text. Then only we get some idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't really do the critical appraisal piece without being able to see the methods. and to understand, are the conclusions, are the interpretations being overblown? It's very hard to determine that without the full paper. Okay, well, thank you so much for your attention and time today. I hope to follow up with an email either from myself or Colleen that includes the PowerPoint presentation today, a link to the library guide presented, as well as maybe a quick evaluation so that we can keep improving this in future years. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
Thank you,
and
Sandra.
everyone from Queens. Thank you so much for the wonderful session. And it is really, really crucial. And it's always an eye opener when it comes to topics like this. Thank you so much for your wonderful support.
Learned
It's
a lot.
truly our pleasure. Thank you,
So,
everyone,
good
and
night,
goodbye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.